Welcome to my CLI Team Roster Builder application. It was built using some given code, and then we developed that code to create functionality and to dynamically render a web page where a user through the CLI can input information about their team, and then the app dynamically creates HTML with that information that shows the various team members. So looking at the folder, we've got a library that has a handful of different JS files. They were all given in the development information. The HTML render JS is all that code was pretty much all existing. But the other files, the employee, engineer, intern, and manager, were all files that we had to develop. And the way that these were developed was through test-driven development. So it was all built in order to pass a series of tests that we'll find in the test folder. Um, all of these are roles other than the HTML render, and all of the engineer, intern, and manager are iterations of the employee class. So it takes the employee class and then builds upon them. We have our node modules, which get installed when we do an npm install of all our dependencies. We've got templates. These are HTML templates that help the HTML renderer JS file render the HTML that's going to display on our page. For example, you can see for the engineer, once it has the user's information, it generates this card using things like the ID, the name, email, etc. In the test folder, we had various tests regarding the employee, engineer, intern, and manager. And the way that we want to run these tests is we'll get there in a minute, actually. I'm going to go through everything first. The Get Ignore folder has our node modules, and what that does is tell it helps prevent Git from pushing all of the node modules. It says we don't need to do that, so it ignores that when we do our Git push. The app.js is kind of where all the magic comes together. We've got all the various things, requirements that are needed in terms both of classes and also methods like inquirer, Axios, etc. We have our two packages. In our package.json, you'll see we have our dependencies like Axios and Inquirer, and also Just, which is needed to run our tests. And then we have a README, which I created. So the first thing that you would want to do to utilize this application is you would want to do an npm install, which would download all the dependencies that are needed for the functionality of this. Now I've already done that, so we won't do that. What I'm going to take you through next is, since we have this series of tests, these tests compare the code in the employee, engineer, intern, and manager, and make sure everything that we want to have happen happens. So to see if our tests work, we'll do npm run test, enter, and you'll see that all of our tests have passed. There's a whole list, and they each have to do with each file. So our employee tests, everything passed, everything for the engineer, for the manager, and for the intern. So that's good news. Everything passes. Next, to run the functionality of this application, we want to build our team. We're going to go ahead and open the app.js in the terminal. We're going to use the command line to do node app, and then we're going to be asked a series of questions. I have defaults listed in here. So I'll be using a mix of the defaults and then a few that I'm going to add in because there's one default for each role. So we've got Michael Scott's our manager. His ID is 1. Enter his email, his office number, and then it asks which employee do you want to add next. So we're going to use the arrow key to go up or down. Let's add an engineer as it's already highlighted, and we're going to do Pam Beasley. She's ID 2, her email, and her GitHub. All right, and then what you can see here is I had put in a console log both of the added employee and then of the array, because what we're doing each time we add an employee is we're pushing it to this team array. So I want to make sure that that's all showing up and working, which it is. All right, we're going to do another engineer. So it says once it's done with that, it asks again, which type of employee do you want to add? We want to add another engineer. We're going to go Dwight Schrute. He is employee 3. His engineer email is dwight@dundermifflin.com. His GitHub is Dwight. And there it shows that he was pushed to our array. All right, let's add a few interns. Here we go. These are all defaults. And then we're going to add another intern. Let's call this intern Kelly Miata. She'll be 5. Kelly at dundermifflin.com. We'll do one more intern. Yost. She'll be employee 6. All right, now we're all done adding. I added that many employees because originally the code that was given in the HTML render was worked really well for 3 employees, but once you got more than 3, the formatting was pretty funky. So I had to make some adjustments to make sure that it still looked clean and cohesive once you got more than 3 employees. So that's why I wanted to do 6, just so that we could see that even with more than 3 employees, it looks nice. We are going to now select none because we're all done adding employees. Hit enter. And you'll see over here, this team roster.html just popped up. Okay, that wasn't there before and it just popped up over here. So we'll open this file and see what kind of magic was created. You can see it rendered an HTML file that has all of the employees that we entered. Alrighty. And now let's take a peek at how that looks in our browser. All right, and here is our team. Michael Scott, Pam Beasley, Dwight Schrute as our engineers, and then our 3 interns. You can see that even if you open this up a little bit, it still maintains organization in the way it looks. You have all the information that we added for each person down here in the cards. All right, the last thing you can see is in my GitHub. We've got all the files, we've got the team roster, and then we also have the README going on. Okay, thanks for taking a peek at the way this application works. That's all for now.